All right, first up this afternoon, Sub-Saharan Africa must increase funding to deal with climate change challenges or risk negative impact on food production. That's according to a new report released by the African Development Bank. Yes, more. President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, at the ongoing Africa Development Bank annual meetings, hinted that given the scale of resources needed to meet Africa's nationally determined contribution targets, estimated at about $145.5 billion a year until 2030, more concrete policy actions will be required to close Africa's annual climate financing gap in view of the low climate finance resource flows to the continent. This year's African Economic Outlook also offers innovative perspectives on how African countries can successfully navigate the ongoing socio-economic challenges and rising geopolitical conflicts to avoid a triple crisis of sluggish economic recovery, increased energy deficits and inequality, and high climate vulnerabilities.
It has rocked global commodity and financial markets yet again. The African Economic Outlook also focuses on the issue of climate change and the just energy transition, which form the theme of the annual meetings of the African Development Bank. The report shows that Africa needs a lot more financing to tackle climate change, but it came at it from a different perspective, or let me say, a new perspective. The global community has for many years been clamoring, and more recently at the COP26.
The situation is likely to affect cost of living as energy and food crises persist on the continent. Meanwhile, countries in West and East Africa are projected to be the most affected, with the impact of the high warming scenario becoming progressively more severe. All right, more on this, I'm joined in studio by Chief Executive of the Global Center on Adaptation, Professor Dr. Patrick Vercoen. Great to have you in studio. It's been a busy day for you. You've been here, had a press conference, you're back now to talk about climate change, which is an important subject, okay? So how vulnerable is Ghana to the threats of climate change?
Well, Ghana is very vulnerable to the climate emergency of today, but particularly of what is coming tomorrow. We're now living in a world which is roughly 1 degree Celsius warmer than it used to be, but we're heading into a 1.5 degree world, perhaps even a 2 to 3 degrees warmer world. We're seeing the climate shocks in Ghana already today, the floods, the droughts, the storms. Wait for what is coming, and I think the right approach today is, Daryl, Ghana needs to prepare for the disaster of tomorrow, because there is a saying, it's you either delay and pay or you plan and prosper, because there's a very strong economic case to invest in climate action. There's a very strong economic case, particularly in climate adaptation, adapting to the climate shocks. Let me give you a figure.
All right.
We've looked into the climate shocks on the existing infrastructure system here in Ghana. The water supply system, transportation system, and the energy system. What if you make that whole existing infrastructure climate resilient so it can withstand and weather the shocks? Cost $1.3 billion. But what the alternative world is also true. What if you don't invest in resilient infrastructure? Those costs are $13 billion, so it's a factor of 10. So with other words, Daryl, it's smart economics to move forward, because we've seen, because of the COVID crisis, lots of jobs have been lost. Lots of livelihoods has been under threat. Now it's time to build forward better. And I think Ghana has the leadership, it has the commitment, it has the plan now. Now we need to mobilize the resources forward.
And we are already seeing the impact, especially on food production. And the FDB just warning that we could have much more crisis if we don't do anything about it at the moment. You talk about preparation. I think we are late in preparing for the impact of climate change. What can the country do?
Yeah, so we're late, but we're not too late. This, I think, is a very important realization. And also, as President Adesina of the African Development Bank indicated, by the way, he's doing a fantastic job of being sort of the spokesperson and key finance mobilizer for the continent as such. He indicated how much money is needed for the continent to become adapted, to become resilient? Well, on an annual figure, that number is $33 billion US. How much money is flowing from the global north to Africa to address that climate resilience world? Only $6 billion. And I think we all need to acknowledge Africa did not cause the climate emergency, but is facing the brunt of the impact. Now there needs to be a global compact in terms of mobilizing the resources at scale for Africa, under the leadership, obviously, of African governments and the people of Africa themselves.
I don't know what you think about that. I don't think that African governments are doing enough. People are just kind of realizing what climate change is doing to us as a continent. I want to talk about financing. Is that the major problem right now?
Well, financing is key. Financing has to flow. But it all starts with the simple proposition, where do you put your scarce resources? Fiscal space, also here in Ghana, is limited. Debt, sovereign debt is up. So how do you spend your currency wisely is a matter of debate. And investing in climate adaptation is a smart thing to do. But I think it's very important to realize the climate transition can not only be funded by government revenues, by taxpayers' dollars. It has to come from the private sector. It has to come from development partners. It has to come from partners like the African Development Bank. We have lots of money in the global system. As you indicated, I was here this morning, where I said, overnight, trillions of dollars were mobilized in the global north, in advanced economies, to address the COVID crisis. Those trillions of dollars were invested in those advanced economies. Overnight, billions of dollars have to be mobilized for climate adaptation, but that has to be spent in Africa as the most vulnerable and least, let's say, resilient continent. And the reality is this: these billions of dollars are there. There is the largest climate fund to date is the Green Climate Fund. $10 billion is there sitting on the bank account. African nations find it very difficult to access these resources. Why? The financial institutions here in Africa are not fit for purpose. They're not accredited to the Green Climate Fund. So if you're not accredited, you can't apply.
Why? Do you know why they're not accredited?
The thing is this: accreditation, and it sounds very mundane, getting accredited is complicated. The rules of the games are complicated. So that's why we as Global Center on Adaptation, we're the only international organization specifically on adaptation, we launched together with the African Development Bank and the African Union the so-called AAAP, Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program. What is it? $25 billion over 5 years, and one component of that plan is supporting African financial institutions to access existing resources. Right? I think it's very important that we all be not only creative, but that we're very determined to know where to access the resources, and that we're very innovative also in terms of happening here in Ghana. Ghana has, because of COVID, because of the fallout of Ukraine, again, which Ghana has nothing to do with, is mounted sovereign debt. Should it not be smart economics if that sovereign debt, which is international debt, would be restructured and de facto cancelled for investments in climate? So there is now this construct of debt for climate swaps. That debt is being cancelled, provided that governments, for that cancellation, invest in climate adaptation. And again, it's smart economics. It creates the jobs for the youth here in Ghana. And I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and I know right now there's also a push to get more young people to start businesses that are climate-oriented, that have the climate in mind. And so there are opportunities there for them too as well.
Precisely. I mean, the jobs of the future are different than the jobs of yesterday. The jobs of the future are well paid for highly educated people who are really sort of commensurate of working with technology. We are supporting thousands of young enterprises to become fit for purpose for the 21st century. For example, companies who want to scale up drought-tolerant crops, we support. Companies who invest in nature-based solutions for infrastructure, we support. Companies who want to unblock drainage systems in cities because the floods are basically we support. So there is this system for support for young entrepreneurs. What they need to do is to bring the entrepreneurial spirit. They need to bring the boldness. But what we need to do as international community, we need to support them with access to finance to scale up their ambition.
All right, I'm told that we have to wrap it up, but let's talk about the impact in the future if we do not treat this urgently, if we do not treat this seriously, the threats of climate change.
Well, that hypothetical for me is a reality which will not materialize. Why? Because there is no alternative than going through this resilient, climate resilient pathway. Because investing in climate is investing in development. Investing in climate is investing in jobs. Investing in climate is investing in prosperity. Is that not the bright future Africa deserves?
Of course.
Indeed.
All right. All the best with your work here in Ghana. I don't know for how long you've been in Ghana, but we'll certainly be following your work here in Ghana, and we're hoping for the best. Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Patrick Vekoin. I appreciate your time with us.
Thank you very much.
Now, government reps and business leaders have been in Accra all week at the African Development Bank annual meetings, but we expect them in London on the 5th of July for the African Risk and Compliance Summit, where they would seek to unlock the huge potential of African businesses and offer practical solutions to obstacles faced by investors. Chief Executive of Emerging Business Intelligence and Innovations Group, Adjoa Ejechum, joins me to talk investments in Africa and the risks. Good to have you on the program this afternoon. There's a lot going on around the world. We have an energy crisis, we have a food crisis, cost of living has gone up, there's high cost of doing business. The World Bank even warning of a global recession. We just talked about climate change threats. With everything happening, why is Africa a good place to invest?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And Africa is still a good place to invest. With all the issues that you've mentioned, it's not unique to Africa alone. The whole world is facing crisis. The Ukraine-Russia situation has affected the whole world. Coronavirus has affected the whole world. But there are a lot of unique opportunities that Africa presents that the rest of the world do not present. And one of the, I'll mention three of them, and one of them is the fact that we have a 1.2 billion people, young people on the continent, and that is projected to reach 1.7 billion by 2030. To me, that is incredible opportunity for any investor looking at a continent to invest. We also have, there's research that shows that by 2050, we will have a quarter of the world's consumers where 60% of the population are under 25. So a quarter of the world consumers are going to be from Africa, and 60% of these consumers are going to be under 25. So again, that's a pool of young talent and entrepreneurs. So it's exciting. We also have the AFCFTA, the promise that it offers within the African continent. I think there's incredible opportunities there. And there's a research by Brookings institutions that says that by 2030, it is expected that the annual spending by African consumers and businesses will reach 6.66 trillion. So that, for me, that's very incredible opportunities on the continent for any business or investors looking to explore. Thank you.
What are some of the risks investors looking to doing business with emerging markets in Africa face? For instance, I was reading your piece which talks about compliance risks.
Yeah, I mean, there are risks that is faced in Africa, but again, these risks, a lot of the risk is also faced across the world. Some of the risk includes getting the right data to be able to make an informed decisions. It is a challenge across the African continent, but I believe that the problem is getting solved as with the increase of technology across the continent. But investors do face a challenge trying to get credible data from credible sources from across the continent. There's also issues around navigating the complex terrain of a highly diverse landscape. We have issues around language barriers, the culture. The culture is so diverse across the continent, and sometimes that could be a little bit of a hindrance to investors. And of course, there's also the inaccurate high-risk perception from global markets. A lot of the global market participants look at Africa as one country, although it's a continent. So where there's an issue in one country, sometimes the risk is perceived to be across the continent. So that's some of the things that the investors, some of the perception or risk issues that are faced across the continent. And it's also the instability in some countries in Africa somehow affects the whole continent. So those are, I would say, the risk that is facing investors have to deal with, or most times can make them a little bit uncomfortable when they think of doing business across the continent.
So then how can businesses put themselves in the position to attract investments? What kind of support can you offer, for instance, the Emerging Business Intelligence and Innovations Group?
So thank you. So we provide advisory support to businesses, to investors, to banks, central banks. We also connect. One of our biggest strengths is connectors. We connect experts to client. So experts on the continent of Africa to clients within this part of the world. We also provide compliance training and consulting. We work very closely also with the University of Oxford in supporting organizations in this area as well. And we have strategic partners. So we have strategic partners in the area of the legal sector, as well as investment advisory firms that can support these clients, the market participants in this part of the world and also in Africa to be able to interact successfully. Thank you.
And so the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is expected to be in London for the Africa Investment Risk and Compliance Summit. That's on the 5th of July. I bet expectations are high.
Absolutely. We are very excited. All roads are leading to London on the 5th of July for the Africa Investment Risk and Compliance Summit. We've got, as you said, the Vice President, His Excellency Bawumia will be joining us in person. We've also got the President of Sierra Leone. He's joining us with about 5 of his ministers. We've got the UK Minister for Africa. We've got Dr. Mo Ibrahim, Sherry Blair, the head of the Oxford University, the Group CEO of Zenith Bank, Group CEO of EcoBank, and many more other business leaders across the continent of Africa, but also from representative from the UN, representative from the UK government, and also within Europe. So we are very excited, looking forward to it. And the summit will provide transformative conversations, insight into major policy shifts, which we should all be expecting to participate, as well as discussions around investment trends and opportunities, and how do we then mitigate the risk that is associated with investment opportunities across the African continent.
And thanks for sharing your perspective on investing in Africa. We appreciate your time, Adjoa J. Chum, CEO of the EBI Group. Now, the General Manager and Executive Director of Benso Oil Palm Plantation, Engineer Samuel Avala, has hinted that Ghana and Africa's leading oil plantation agribusiness is now ready to expand after 40 years of working on the same piece of land. Speaking at the annual general meeting in Takoradi, he said the company had plans for expansion since the regulatory environment was set up with the help of the Tree Crops Development Authority. There's more in this report.
Engineer Avala said the company is more than poised to take advantage of the policy environment that has been created to embark on an expansion. The managing director says, with a clear signal from the authority, another critical milestone would be the win-win engagement with landowners, the assemblies, and traditional authorities to accelerate the expansion drive. He says the expansion project would also consider environmental impact and assessments.
We are more than poised to take advantage of that environment, the policy environment that this has created, to embark on an expansion. And it is our strategy to expand our current production in twofold within the next 5 years. And to do that, we need a lot of the mandate of the Tree Crops Development Authority to come into fruition, to become practical. we also need our chiefs and traditional rulers and authorities and district assemblies to be aligned so that we can co-create the business environment, the plantation agriculture and manufacturing, and that gives people, that reduces poverty among the rural communities and also increases wealth, and in the end the economy benefits, because we would then be able to bridge the gap between our demand and supply, which at the moment is in the negative, and for which reason Ghana is a net importer of palm oil.
Bob is concerned with growing oil palm and processing palm fruit into crude palm oil, the key ingredients used in the downstream refinery and manufacturing of cooking oil and other products for domestic consumption. Chairman of the Board of Directors, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, during the annual general meeting with stakeholders said, despite the coronavirus pandemic, the dedication and prudence measures adopted by the company gave them the stellar performance in 2021.
The results are very good, really outstanding. And as I said, there are three factors. The first of all, the production has increased by almost 10% from the same acreage of land. So to get 10% more is an outstanding performance. But global commodity prices will continue to rise. As we can all see, food prices are rising as never before. But what is going to be critical is production efficiencies and productivity gains on the plantation. This is what is going to ensure that whether prices are high or low, the plantation will remain viable. The viability of a plantation does not depend on world market price going high. Even if world markets drop, you have to have an operational framework which makes it possible for you to make profit, stay viable, and deliver value to your shareholders, even in difficult times.
Bob has become the model of best management practice in the oil palm plantation industry in Africa. With the recent FT ranking of the 75 fastest growing companies in Africa, Bob PLC was one of the 4 companies that made it into the list from Ghana.
Now, JoyNews investigations have revealed how millions of tons of soybeans and other grain products are exported to Togo, Nigeria, and Benin illegally through Tripoli in the northeast region. Government last year placed a temporary ban on the export of the grains as a measure to protect the collapsing poultry industry. Prince Appiah has been investigating this. He joins us on phone, but I want you to take a look at his latest documentary, Broken Chain.
Meet Imoro Mustafa. He is the chairman of the cargo truck drivers here in Chereponi. He corroborates Imoro's claim of immigration and customs officials demanding bribes from farmers transporting their grains to neighboring countries.
We and the borders are put heads together. We pay the immigration 1 bag per 50 pesewa, the custom 1 bag per 2 cedi. And then there is Togo police too there, and the Togo the custom also there. All of them are taking money from us.
Before you get into Togo, you pay 4 destinations before you can get there. So roughly you can pay like 2,000 to 2,500.
All right, Prince Appiah joins us all the way from the US. We're going to try to do this in a minute and 30 seconds, Prince. And watching your report, my confusion is the government has asked the security agencies to work with the MMDAs to ensure that these grains, soybeans, are not exported out of the country. So what's the problem here? Can you hear me, Prince? Oops, we lost Prince Appiah there, unfortunately, but we will continue to follow this story. As I pointed out, government only a few weeks ago asked the security agencies to work with the MMDAs to ensure that the grains are not exported out of the country. And as it appears, and as Prince has been reporting, it appears that ban is not enforced. We will keep following this story for you. We expect to watch Prince's investigation on the broken chain next week, Monday, right here on this channel, as we understand what's happening with the export of grains amid the ban. And that's the marketplace this afternoon. It has been a busy afternoon. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. We are back tomorrow with more marketplace.